everybody, and welcome back to episode 7 of All Talk Scottish Premiership. I am your host, Shay Mitchell, and I don't know if you've noticed anything different about me. I'll give you two guesses on what's changed about my appearance. I'm just myself this week. We've actually, Brooklyn's on holiday, and we actually had a guest coming on. And there was a last minute cancellation, and we didn't have enough time to get somebody else to join me. So it will just be myself this week. So I hope there is nobody disappointed with that. So this week, obviously there was no Premiership games at the weekend. It was only the Scottish Cup. Obviously Championship, League One and stuff like that also carried on as normal. But no Premiership was on at the weekend. So basically what we'll do is we'll go over the predictions that I made for the semi-finals and the ones that Brooklyn also made. And then we'll talk about the semi-finals, and then I'll just go through my predictions again for the Premiership games returning this Saturday. So I'll be a sort of short and sweet episode. Hope you all enjoy the episode, and thanks to our sponsors at VSN. They've been absolutely massive to us. And also don't forget to share the podcast when you listen to it on Spotify or on YouTube. The numbers are doing pretty well for a new show, so I really appreciate everybody's support. So we'll get into the predictions that were made for the first semi-final for Hearts versus Aberdeen. Both of us actually backed Hearts to go through. So Brooklyn said 1 each and Hearts to win 2-1 in extra time, which could have went either way. And I actually said 2-1 Hearts. So obviously the result was 2-1 to Aberdeen after extra time. So we'll get right into it. Obviously there was 2 sending offs in the game. The first one, I apologise for the pronunciation. I can't even say the word. I apologise for how I say the name. But Steinwender for Hearts and Devlin sent off. So we'll get right into that straight away, get the negatives out the way. I do believe I do believe the first one was a red card. I get people could maybe say you need to take lots of stuff into consideration, like, after the tackle is made, there is a good amount of distance to the goal. The Hearts player, who obviously is not really last man, but there is a Hearts player to the left-hand side of where the challenge got made. If the Aberdeen player is running with the ball, the Hearts player without the ball is more likely going to be quicker, more likely to catch him. But he is last man, and that's sort of that's why the red card's been given. I do think John Beaton was very, very quick to get the card out, and I wonder, does sometimes referees make the decisions based off, I don't know, like, the referees aren't there for entertainment, but sometimes I'm like, the way the referees sometimes will blow the whistle and point to the penalty spot, it's like it's a bit showman-like, and I just wonder, was that a sort of like showman main character feel like, if I get this red card out quickly, it's part of a show? I don't know, I've got that sort of feeling like, was there a need to get it out that fast? But at the end of the day, I believe VAR would have still given it as a red card. I honestly do. And I'm interested, that's a bit of a bummer with stuff like this. Could have had Brooklyn on this week, and I hope he's having a good holiday, but could have had Brooklyn on this week where, difference of opinions, and obviously we're going to have a guest on, but I'll not say who it was going to be because we'll be getting them back on. But a difference of opinion sometimes matters. So really, I'm leaving it up to yourselves that are listening or watching on YouTube or Spotify if you agree with me on that one. Devlin one was I think certainly a bit more harsh, but obviously you look at it. Did Devlin maybe make 2 or 3 tackles before that? And people will go, oh, but this one didn't warrant a yellow card. But maybe the build up of wee fouls or. So maybe that warranted, you know, the card coming out there for Devlin. And so it's harsh for Hearts because, you know, they're playing a lot of the second half with all of the second half with a man down, and then they're playing parts of extra time with another man down. So it's hard, but my stance on it is not definitely, obviously, because it's a matter of opinion, but I do believe the first one was correct and the second one was correct, but the second one was more harsh. So that's sort of the kind of road I'm going down with that one. As for the game, the first half I thought was very, very exciting. Obviously, Aberdeen take the lead with a somewhat, Craig Gordon on goal, who had a good game. You know, if I can move like that at his age, then I'll honestly be a very, very lucky man to be able to get into some positions he can. And then Shankland, obviously, there was that discussion with me and Brooklyn had last week. Shankland getting dropped for the Motherwell game. Would they be back in for this game? And I think it would have been crazy for him not to be brought back in. You know, he's still a player for Hearts that if somebody's going to get goals, it's going to be him. And that's what he did do. He got that equaliser. And I think the first half was very exciting. I feel like it was a very, very good game of football. You know, that's what you want in a semi-final. You want the games to sort of be end to end. You don't really know who's going to take it. And this was going to be the semi-final where you were more like you don't know who will win. Obviously, we'll go on to the Sunday semi-final, but 95% of football would have went for Celtic. This one, it was a toss of a coin basically, and obviously going into it, I think Hearts going into half time were the better side, and I think they would have been more confident coming out of the second half if the red card did not happen. But it did, and the second half, very, very, I wouldn't say boring because obviously tactics had to change. So it was a lot more less exciting, is the words I would say. But that was due to Hearts having to change a lot of stuff because they've went into this game, into this second half, getting that goal to get them back into it. When realistically, I think if any team was going to take the lead in this game, I would have probably put my money on it being Hearts. The way things were going in the first half, but they've had to come out for this second half and sort of shut up shop a wee bit, being a man down, and it really changed the game. And obviously that lasted for pretty much right up until the end, and then obviously we go into extra time, and I feel like it's very rare you get an exciting extra time. I look back to the League Cup final where it was Celtic and Rangers, and I believe we got 2-2 at the end of the game, or was it? I think that basically it was either 2-2 going into extra time or it went 3-3 going into extra time. But what I'm trying to get is though the extra time was not much really happened, and that's what I think with a lot of games that go into extra time. These games do get sort of like nobody wants to do anything. Even the players are like, even if the players are instructed to go for it, they're too scared to go for it because they're like, we've got this far. I don't want to be the one to make the mistake this late into the game to mess up for everybody. And then a man I said a couple of weeks ago, Dabag Palestinian striker that signed in January, came in and played quite well in the games he's played. I said for him as like a sort of one to watch one weekend, and I don't even think he actually played that weekend, but I think he's been quite an exciting signing for Aberdeen. He pops up with a goal, and whether it be a toe poke or a tap in, he still gets that goal. Once again, another great save from Gordon. I don't think he can do much else with it. People will be like, he's palmed it right to him, but I think the reaction time of Gordon, as I said, his agility for that age is incredible. Obviously gets the goal late on to win, and obviously the scenes in the stadium looked amazing for Aberdeen fans. And that's something people want to talk about as well. Like, Aberdeen not taking a lot of fans, but they'll probably get half the stadium for the final. Is that fair? And I would say that it is fair. And you need to look at it. People will go, oh, but you support your team no matter what. You know, Aberdeen fans are probably having to leave at 5, 6 in the morning to get to that game. And I know they'll probably still need to leave at maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 to get to the game when it's the final. But I don't know, obviously, remember, obviously, it is a lot further for them to travel, but it is such a tough one because obviously someone came out and said the game was up in Peterhead, which is closer to Aberdeen. Aberdeen would have 25,000 there, no bother. But, you know, sadly for Aberdeen, the National Stadium is in Glasgow and not up there. It's not going to be in Peterhead, realistically. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one. You know, I imagine if a lot of the fans wanted to or felt they were able to get there, they would go. Do you know what I mean? I don't believe fans wake up and go, no way. There's no way I don't want to see my team playing a semi-final. And people might go, aye, but if you support your team, you should be there no matter what. But I don't really think that is the case with a lot of fans. And sometimes, you know, stuff needs to, like, a bit of reality needs to come into it. You know, some fans might not go home, might not get a half day at work on a Friday. They might have to work on a Sunday, so them doing that, travelling on the... And I know you can say that for any fans, you know, I know Hearts fans are coming, majority are coming from Edinburgh, and it's still quite a distance. It's not as far as Aberdeen, but it's like that with loads of fans. I can guarantee you there will be a Hearts fan from Edinburgh that never got to make that semi-final because something came up that weekend. You know, you don't know what goes on, but I do think it's harsh for Aberdeen not to be offered half the stadium. But what I don't want to happen is if they don't sell half of the stadium, if they only sell a section of the stadium, for it to be held back from Celtic fans. I don't want to see in a final a big chunk of the stadium just being empty and people going, oh, but that was for Aberdeen fans, but we're not giving it to Celtic fans because we don't want to make it any more unfair than what it already might be. I think if Aberdeen do not sell their allocation, whatever is left, I do believe should go to Celtic fans. You know, look at that game on Sunday as well. If that happened, you know, if it did come out that, look, St John's are barely going to take any fans, but we don't want to give Celtic fans any more because it might make it's a bit unfair. It just doesn't look good, you know. Seeing that stadium as full as it can be, it makes it so much better. So, quite a lot of sort of different discussions, not much about the game coming from the weekend. A lot of it to do with, you know, how many fans Aberdeen took, the 2 red cards, Hearts coming up with a statement about the decisions. You know, not much was spoken about of the game, and I understand the game's standard maybe fell off a wee bit after the first half, but sadly that's football. There's a lot more stuff to talk about than just football, but I think it was a good way to start the semi-final weekend. 100% good way to start it. And, you know, I have a feeling a lot of people disagree with my opinions this week regarding the sending offs and the fan situation. Obviously, Brooklyn said that last week actually about the Hibs game, how full Easter Road was, but why was it full against Dundee? Why was it not full when they started the unbeaten run? Why was it not full when it was like 5 games unbeaten instead of 17 games unbeaten? And that is a big part, but it'll be interesting to see what does happen regarding tickets with the final. I do have a feeling it'll be a lot more full for Aberdeen fans than it was, even though it is a Saturday again. It's not an early kick-off, so that'll be interesting to see. But overall, congratulations to Aberdeen and unlucky to Hearts, who are technically kind of in the fight now for not being put in the playoff spots. I do believe they'll end up not nowhere near it. I don't believe they'll be near it, though. I don't think they'll have anything to worry about going down. I think, obviously, Neil Critchley will remain the Hearts manager going into the start of next season. But congratulations to Aberdeen, who they will meet Celtic in the final. And the predictions me and Brooklyn made for that was Brooklyn said 4-1 Celtic when St Johnstone did get a goal and it was chopped off. I said 3-0 Celtic, Forrest goal and assist, which he did not get, but Celtic did get the clean sheet. So Celtic were absolutely incredible. I felt, honestly, when the game started, I was like, this could be a 7 or 8. And you just get that feeling. And I think what was worse for St Johnstone is the fact that Celtic were out for revenge as well. I feel like, see if the other week Dundee United beat Celtic 1-0, but I think Celtic are went, you were the team that beat us, you were the team that we let ruin our title party at home to Kilmarnock. If we beat them, we're coming after you, basically. And that they did. Obviously, man of the match, Callum McGregor, was outstanding yet again. The way he can manipulate play is with the ball is just incredible. I thought Hatate was a joke, like an actual joke. Engels, the game passed him by, and I'm just starting to look at it. Is it too close to the end of the season to start making sort of full-time rotations? And what I mean by full-time rotations is it kind of too late in the season to just go to Bernardo? Bernardo, you're starting the last, 5 games. But to me, if we were still in a situation where Celtic and Rangers were going at the title for each other, I think definitely that's not the right thing to do. But I think Bernardo or even McKibben has a chance to start. I think a lot of Celtic fans would like to see Bernardo or McKibben start the game this Saturday. I just thought the game, and look, this isn't me saying Bernardo is better than Engels. I do think Engels is a great player. I just think games are passing him by a bit too much. He didn't do anything wrong at the weekend, but did he do anything that got you off your seat? And as a Celtic fan, I imagine you want to get players that will get you off your seat. And the past couple of games, Engels has not really done that. Maeda, 2 goals, and it was, all the goals came right at the end of half time, and it's obviously apart from the Jota one, but that kills you. Going into half time against Celtic at 1-0, I believe St Johnstone are going, right, okay, we've got this far. 2-0, it's it was coming. Then when it goes 3, then when it goes 4, they're probably just we'll just pack our bags and go. But Maeda getting 2 goals, it will be incredible if he reaches the 40 goal a season mark. It'll be a player I don't think Celtic could let go. He's a player that you cannot get another Maeda. And I know people will go, oh, you couldn't get another Kyogo. But realistically, how many people probably said, you'll never get another Dembele, you get an Edward, you'll never get another Edward, then you get a Kyogo. You do get all these players where you think you're never going to be able to replace. I do believe Maeda is somebody that's never really going to be able to be replaced. I think what he brings to the team is something different, and it's just the way he just plays football is, it does get you off your seat. When Celtic score that 4th goal, and you're going to half time and he's still sprinting, and I know people go, that's what you should be doing as a footballer, but he's non-stop, and I've said it before, he's probably eats Duracell batteries for his breakfast. Like, it's incredible what he does. And obviously Big Ida popping up as well, getting a goal. Obviously that video came out obviously of him out being sick outside a taxi, which I don't really think is fair. That was shown about. I think it looked as if he sort of apologised when he scored, but I don't believe a lot of Celtic fans care. If I know people could say he's not been doing it in the pitch, but see, sometimes when you're not doing it in the pitch, sometimes you need to let off steam a little bit more than when you are playing well. And it must be hard for being a footballer in general, and especially being at Celtic and Rangers, where it is like a fishbowl. Imagine if some of them have girlfriends. They probably 9 times out of 10 don't want to go out for dinner with their girlfriends or wives, because you could go for a wee Italian and you could have one person, you could have 10 people giving you so much positivity. You could be a Rangers player and Celtic fans could even go, oh, there's Dessers and not even saying to him. You could have Rangers fans going, oh, there's Big Ida, and then maybe have a wee laugh and joke with him. But you will always get, them 1 or 2 people who will just give you grief, and it must be hard up here. He's went out and he's obviously had a good night out. I know we've all had good nights out. We've all had nights where we've spewed in our beds or spewed in a taxi, or sometimes even spewed in the pub or in the clubs. So I feel like a lot of people kind of felt sorry for him. And, he's went and done his talking on the pitch. I feel like he did play well. there is that little bit more that people probably want to see. But look, the big man is only 24, and he came in last year and possibly saved Celtic season, and that's when Norwich knew, there's your price tag. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. And he's done okay this season. I don't think he's been a terrible player for Celtic. He has scored some goals, away to Hearts, and he scored in a semi-final. He's scored in the Champions League. He's scored goals this season. It's not as if he's went all season without scoring. So it was good seeing the big man scoring. I don't think he's getting to apologise for whether it was an apology or not, but I don't imagine he's going to watch this. But if he is, I'm telling you right now, we forgive you, big man. Don't worry. And in the second half, I said it the other week with Brooklyn. A lot of the times this year, Celtic's come out in the second half, and it's been it's just stopped. There could be 3-0 up, and you're like, they're going to come out the second half. It's going to be 4 or 5. They come out, it finishes 3-0, and it kind of didn't happen. Obviously, Mackenzie Kirk with a great goal for St Johnstone. It's soft, but was it just a poor touch from Ida and he felt the touch? But maybe that is where common sense comes into football as well, that they're 4-0 down. The boys just scored an absolute topper at Hampden, give them the goal, but at the same time, if football was ran with common sense, would we get a lot of the decisions that are actually given? So I felt sorry for him there, but it technically is a foul. And, it probably wasn't the best of weekends for VAR yet again, which we're probably seeing sort of every weekend. So, obviously, St Johnstone get that goal. Sinisalo actually made a great save as well before that. So, St Johnstone came out, with a bit of dignity, want to try and prove themselves in the second half. Celtic makes some changes, about 60-odd minutes in. 8 minutes later, wee ball from Kuhn, whipped in by Johnson, great finish by Jota. And obviously the penalty one as well, I actually think it is a penalty. The momentum James Forrest is running with, any wee touch is going to take him down if you're bobbing and weaving. I do think it was a penalty, but at the same time, it didn't really affect anything that happened in the game differently. But Jota getting his goal at Hampden, I believe the last goal he got at Hampden it would have been his last appearance for Celtic against Inverness in the Scottish Cup final under Ange Postecoglou. So terrific from Celtic. They're on their way to a treble, and obviously this report came out this week of a tedious treble. And, is football possibly getting like that? And I just think it's too many games now. And, you look at the Champions League, Celtic have pretty much played every game they possibly can in Scotland. They've got, they had 4 games at home in the Champions League, 4 games away, and then they had another game at home for the Bayern game, so 5. It's a lot of money, but I think you do have a lot of fans going, well, there's all these games, and I'm not saying I agree with fans leaving at half time, but what I'm saying is there is such an odd feeling like first of all, the treble's not even in the bag. Aberdeen could come out, and I believe they will come out and give Celtic a good game. Well, do I believe Aberdeen will win the cup? No, I don't. But the treble isn't in the bag. But it doesn't have that same feeling, as the invincible treble was invincible. The double treble, the treble was the quadruple treble. That was the first time it was ever done. Then Ange's treble was after some really tough times at COVID. With Rangers stopping the 10, Ange coming in, getting a double, then getting a treble. But there seems to be a sort of just a weird feeling about it, and I don't think Celtic fans are taking it for granted. I just do believe now in football there maybe is there's too many games. It's just, I feel like there was a game as well when there was a month where maybe Celtic had 5 or 6 home games because they had the cup involved, the Champions League, and then they had the league. And I know majority of Celtic fans would go to every game as they possibly can, but is it just that sort of feeling where it's hard for people to enjoy football now because there's so many games sort of shoved down your throats? But I don't think that has any effect on the feeling of a treble. I do honestly believe if Celtic go out and win the treble against Aberdeen, You know, I don't believe a lot of the Celtic fans won't enjoy it, and you know, it has been, you know, a good treble. I think what the thing is, there's not been many. To me, this year, there's not been any memorable performances for Celtic. There's not been a game where you went, off. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think maybe looking back, the Bratislava game, because Champions League night, I remember that it was a nice day outside, sun was shining. Celtic winning 5-1 in a Champions League game. That's a sort of game I look back and I remember. Obviously, you had the 3-0 against Rangers, but then you also, when you go to Ibrox and get beat 3-0, that kind of cancels that out. And then in the final where you won, it's actually a game where I think Celtic fans, you know that feeling when even when you win a game, but you remember how you felt during the game. So when they watch it back, they probably feel that sort of nervousness. So I think it was just one of them games where it was hard for people to enjoy and hard for people to remember. But I don't think this is a tedious treble if Celtic get it. I believe if Celtic get the treble, I'm pretty sure a lot of Celtic fans will make sure to enjoy it. So unlucky to St Johnstone, obviously more likely going to be getting relegated from the Scottish Premiership. And congratulations to Celtic, who are going to be in the final and meet Aberdeen. And we'll do our sort of predictions closer to then, but I do believe Celtic will be the champions and treble winners on the day. So it's kind of a short and sweet episode. You know, we'll go over the games that are going to happen this weekend. And I'll go over Brooklyn's and myself's predictions. Brooklyn doesn't have a chance to change them if he believes he should. Or I believe he wants to, sorry. So I might change a couple of mine due to some things. So Dundee United versus Celtic. That's the early kick-off on Saturday where Celtic could be crowned champions for the fourth year running and get their 55th title. Brooklyn said 3-1 Celtic and I said 3-0. I will stick with that. Aberdeen versus Hibs. Brooklyn said 2-1 Hibs and I said 2 each. I am going to change that to 3-1 to Hibs. I believe Hibs are strong and I think Aberdeen played very poorly. And the semi-final, I do feel like Hearts were probably the favourites to get through actually from watching the game, but I just believe Hibs will go up there and get the win now and maybe solidify their place in third. We both said 2-1 to Hearts against Dundee. I am actually going to change that to 1-1. I believe Hearts going to extra time with, 10 players for the majority of the game and then go down to 9. And Dundee getting a week off, and I think Dundee have got more to fight for. I believe they'll get a point at Tynecastle. Killie versus Ross County, who me and Brooklyn both believe will end up in the playoff spot. Brooklyn says it'll be 2-2, and I said it'll be 1-0 to Ross County, and I'm going to stand by that. And then Motherwell versus St Johnstone, which will pretty much see St Johnstone relegated. Motherwell 3, St Johnstone 0 from Brooklyn, and I believe it will be 2-1 to Motherwell. And then St Mirren versus Rangers. Brooklyn said 3-1 Rangers, and I said 2-0 St Mirren. Obviously, Rangers have now, been knocked out of Europe, a football battle. They were probably a shout for a penalty as well last week. Definitely, by the way, it was a penalty. I thought it was a penalty. I couldn't believe it never get given. But it never get given. Bilbao went and got a penalty, and then they got a goal just to kill Rangers off. So that's the European run came to an end. I said 2-0 St Mirren, but I am actually the whole Barry Ferguson thing. Rangers 2 goals down, and they bring it right back. I am going to say that will be 2-2 in that game. So that's the games this Saturday. Thanks for listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube. A short and sweet episode as we had a last minute cancellation. So I hope you all enjoyed, and don't forget to like and subscribe and share as much as possible. And have a good weekend, and I'll see you all next week. Thank you. Cheers.